Imagine feeding an artificial intelligence a decade's worth of dense legal transcripts. Just hundreds of thousands of pages of cross-examinations, footnotes, appeals.
Right, just a mountainous amount of text.
Yeah, exactly. And then in the time it takes you to blink, it finds the single buried contradiction on, page 4,000 that wins your entire case.
Which is wild to think about.
It is. And the crazy thing is, we aren't talking about science fiction anymore. We are talking about today.
Yeah, it really is a profound shift. I mean, we're moving past the era where AI was just a really fast conversationalist, right?
Yeah.
We're entering an era where it operates as this omnivorous, instantaneous synthesizer of massive data.
Absolutely. So welcome to this deep dive. Today, our mission is to unpack this incredibly revealing update from the April 25th, 2026 edition of the AI News Daily Digest, which is pulling from some really critical insights over at MIT Technology Review.
Right, and it's a huge update.
Oh, massive. We are focusing our entire conversation today on one specific development, and that is the preview release of the V4 flagship model by DeepSeek, which is a prominent Chinese AI firm. And what they've just done, it fundamentally rewrites the rules on how artificial intelligence is built, what it can comprehend, and honestly, who actually gets to hold the keys to the kingdom.
Which is exactly why this isn't just another routine software patch. The implications of this release are going to cascade through basically every industry that touches digital data.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we look at the shockwaves this is sending through the tech industry, we really have to establish the actual mechanics of the leap they've made.
Right, the what before the who.
Exactly. When you look at the breakdown of V4, the most glaring technical upgrade is a massive expansion in its prompt length capacity. Basically, it's memory.
Yeah, it has the ability to process significantly longer prompts than anything in its immediate lineage. And to really grasp why that matters to you, the listener, we kind of have to look at the historical bottleneck of AI.
Right, because for the longest time, working with an AI model was... well, it was like trying to paint a massive, intricate mural, right? But you were only allowed to look at the wall through a paper towel tube.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, you could see the 3 square inches right in front of you with perfect clarity. And you could paint that tiny section beautifully. But if you wanted to make sure the colors matched what you painted on the other side of the wall an hour ago...
good luck.
Right, good luck. The AI just couldn't hold the entire context in its active memory. It had goldfish memory.
That's a brilliant way to frame it. The context window, which is basically the amount of raw text or data this system can actively hold and cross-reference at one given moment, was the ultimate limiting factor.
Yeah.
Developers were spending half their time coming up with elaborate workarounds just to deal with this limitation.
Basically fighting the tool itself.
All right. Exactly. They were chunking data into tiny pieces, feeding it in sequence, just hoping the AI wouldn't lose a thread. It was incredibly inefficient and prone to hallucination because the model was essentially flying blind to the broader narrative.
Right. And V4 completely shatters that limitation. It's like handing someone a towering stack of textbooks and asking them to synthesize it instantly. But here's where I have to pause.
Okay.
Because the engineering math behind this is what usually trips people up. MIT Technology Review highlights that this massive leap in capability is driven by a, quote, novel design that boosts the model's efficiency in managing substantial text data.
Right. Efficiency is the key word there.
Okay, but hold on. If I understand how AI context works, every time you add a new word to a prompt, the computer has to map how that word relates to every single other word in the prompt.
Yep.
It's not a linear math problem, it's exponential. So logically, processing massive amounts of text takes massive computing power. How does simply having a novel design stop the system from just bogging down or the servers bursting into flames under the weight of all that data? You can't just wish away the math.
Well, you've hit on the exact technical friction point that has defined AI research for the last 3 years.
Really?
Oh, yeah. If you rely on brute force computing, yes, the compute cost explodes exponentially as the prompt gets longer. Like you said, 10 words might require 100 mathematical connections. 100,000 words might require billions. You simply run out of silicon and electricity.
Exactly. So what is the model actually doing differently?
So while the exact proprietary architecture isn't fully laid bare in the digest, the key mechanism relies on moving away from that brute force recalculation.
Okay.
When the insights mention efficiency in managing substantial data, they are talking about algorithmic shortcuts. Ways to map relationships without having to independently calculate every single one every single time.
Wait, if it's taking shortcuts, isn't it losing the nuance? I mean, an indexing system makes sense if you're just looking for a specific keyword in a static book.
Right.
But AI relies on active reasoning. It has to understand the tone, the hidden variables, the context. How does it manage massive data without dumbing down the reasoning?
That's the brilliance of it, because the efficiency isn't about skipping the reading. It's about optimizing the attention.
Optimizing the attention.
Yeah. Instead of treating every single word as equally important to every other word, which, as you pointed out, is computationally disastrous, these novel designs are trained to recognize patterns of relevance.
Oh, I see.
They effectively group concepts, compress the less critical connective tissue, and maintain a high-fidelity map of the core arguments and facts. So when the AI needs to synthesize page 1 with page 1000, it isn't dragging a massive anchor of irrelevant conjunctions along with it.
Okay, crap.
It's connecting the precise high-value concepts.
So it's not just a bigger engine, it's like a completely different kind of transmission that doesn't waste energy spinning its wheels on the irrelevant stuff.
Precisely. And that efficiency is what makes it functional in the real world, rather than just a theoretical parlor trick in some supercomputer lab.
Right. And think about what that real-world impact actually looks like for a moment. We touched on the lawyer example earlier, but let's go deeper.
Yeah, let's do it.
Imagine a medical research lab trying to crack a rare genetic disorder. They have tens of thousands of pages of seemingly disconnected clinical trials, patient histories, and genomic sequences. In the past, no human could hold all that in their brain, and no AI could process it in a single pass.
And that forced researchers to ask very narrow, highly specific questions. I mean, they basically had to guess what they were looking for before they found it.
Yes, exactly. But with a model like V4, you don't have to pre-filter the data. You just dump the entire universe of raw, messy, unstructured research into the prompt and ask, what are we missing?
Which is huge.
The AI can instantly cross-reference a bizarre side effect from a 2018 study in Tokyo with a subtle genetic marker found in a 2024 study in London. It synthesizes the whole wall without the paper towel tube.
Or, take software development. Modern applications consist of millions of lines of code. If a developer wanted an AI to help find a systemic bug, older models would just lose track of the architecture.
Yeah, they'd forget the beginning by the time they read the end.
Exactly. You'd feed it one file, and it wouldn't know how that file interacted with a database configured 3 directories away. But V4 can ingest the entire architecture of a complex software product all at once. It sees the whole machine.
Which is just an incredibly powerful tool. I mean, if DeepSeek had simply announced this longer prompt capability and, say, locked it behind a massive corporate paywall, charging thousands of dollars a month for access, it would still be the biggest tech story of the week.
Without a doubt, it is a frontier capability.
So we have an AI that can essentially hold a whole library in its head at once. In the past, whoever built an engine that powerful would immediately slap a massive price tag on it.
Of course.
But DeepSeek didn't do that. Here's where it gets really interesting. They made V4 open source.
Yeah. It is a move that fundamentally alters the gravity of the tech ecosystem.
And let's not gloss over this, because we aren't talking about a company open sourcing a 3-year-old obsolete model as some sort of PR stunt.
No, not at all.
The update confirms this is the preview release of their V4 flagship model, the crown jewels, the absolute pinnacle of their current engineering.
Correct. The most advanced tool in their arsenal is now accessible to developers and researchers globally.
Okay, but again, from a purely strategic standpoint, I have to ask, why?
It's a fair question.
Right. I mean, if you spend tens of millions of dollars on compute power, hire the best engineers on Earth, and build the fastest race car in the world, you don't hand the blueprints and the keys to your competitors.
You'd think not.
So why on earth give away a flagship model? It goes against every instinct of corporate capitalism. What is the actual ROI here? Why invite collective improvements?
To understand the ROI, you have to look at the limitation of closed systems. The MIT Tech Review analysis hones in on this beautifully, noting that it fosters innovation and collaboration across borders.
Okay.
When a model is open source, it invites what they call collective improvements. Let's look at the math of innovation. A prominent tech firm might have 1,000 brilliant engineers, right?
Right.
They can test the model against 1,000 different use cases. But the moment you open source it, you instantly acquire a research and development team of millions.
Oh, wow. You're crowdsourcing the evolution of the tech. Like a world-class chef publishing the exact recipe for their Michelin star dish on the internet for anyone to modify.
Exactly. The global community is infinitely more diverse in its problem solving than any single corporate entity could ever be. Developers in Brazil, researchers in Germany, students in India, they are going to take V4 and apply it to niche, complex, localized problems that the original engineers never even considered.
Yeah.
They will stress test the edges of the model, they will find the security vulnerabilities, they will patch the inefficiencies.
So in a way, keeping it closed actually stunts the model's growth.
Yes, exactly.
By giving it away, DeepSeek is ensuring that their architecture becomes the foundational layer that the entire world builds upon. It's almost like they're establishing the new operating system for the AI era, and they want everyone writing software for their specific platform.
That is the strategic brilliance of it. And the ripple effect of that strategy is the democratization of AI development. We throw the word democratize around a lot in tech, often incorrectly, but this is the purest definition of it.
Let's dwell on what that democratization actually feels like on the ground. Because if top-tier, massive context AI is locked behind a billionaire's corporate wall, then only other massive corporations can afford to use it to innovate.
Right.
The friction to enter the market is incredibly high. If you are a brilliant developer in a developing nation, you are priced out of the future.
You are relegated to using inferior, outdated tools while the mega corporations just sprint ahead.
Exactly. But when a flagship model is freely available to download and modify, a tiny, underfunded startup focused on clean energy suddenly has the exact same computational horsepower as a trillion-dollar tech giant.
Yep.
The playing field isn't just leveled, it's completely repaved. The independent university lab studying rare diseases doesn't have to beg for a grant just to afford API calls to a proprietary model. They can run V4 locally.
And that local control is a massive point.
Oh, for sure. They can strip it down, modify the weights, train it specifically on their own proprietary medical data without worrying about a tech giant snooping on their research.
Because when you rely on a closed proprietary model via an API, you are completely at the mercy of the company that owns it. They could change the pricing structure tomorrow.
Right.
They could alter the safety filter in a way that breaks your application. They could deprecate the model entirely.
You're building a house on rented land.
Precisely. Open source means you own the land. You can build robust, versatile applications with the absolute certainty that the foundation isn't going to just vanish overnight. This accelerates advancements in every single field reliant on AI because it completely removes the anxiety and the financial barrier of the walled garden.
Unstoppable model. Free to everyone. Zero barriers to entry. When you combine those factors, you don't just get a cool new piece of software, you get a global shockwave.
It forces a total realignment of the industry.
Because now we have to look at what this does to everyone else. DeepSeek didn't just release a tool. As the insights point out, they established a new benchmark.
Yes, they did.
Think about track and field. For the longest time, the 4-minute mile was considered the absolute physical limit of human capability, like a physiological impossibility.
He was the ultimate psychological barrier.
Right, and then Roger Bannister comes along and runs it in 3.59. And what happened? Did he remain the only person to ever do it?
No.
No. Within weeks, other runners started breaking the 4-minute mile too. Why? Because the psychological barrier was destroyed. The benchmark had moved. Suddenly, every other runner on the track realized that the impossible was the new baseline. And if they wanted to stay in the race, they had to speed up.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of the tech landscape, DeepSeek is Roger Bannister in this scenario. By proving that a model can handle massive prompt lengths with high efficiency, and by giving that capability away for free, they have destroyed the previous benchmark.
And let's look at the source's specific notation here, because it adds an incredible layer of geopolitical context. The digest notes right at the top that DeepSeek is a prominent Chinese AI firm. And yet, this release is explicitly driving innovation and collaboration across borders. For years, there has been this prevailing narrative, an assumption really, that the absolute bleeding-edge frontier of artificial intelligence was geographically siloed.
Yes, the assumption that the frontier was heavily concentrated in specific tech corridors, largely isolated in Silicon Valley or a few select Western hubs.
But the reality of this release shatters that assumption, doesn't it? I mean, does releasing a global open source benchmark challenge the idea that top-tier AI advancements are isolated to specific regions?
It undeniably does. The fact that a globally recognized benchmark-setting model is emerging from a Chinese firm and is explicitly designed to foster cross-border open source collaboration proves that the frontier of AI is deeply decentralized.
Wow.
The talent, the compute, and the innovation are simply not restricted to one zip code.
Which is terrifying if you are a competitor who relied on that geographic monopoly. What does a massive tech giant do on Monday morning when they realize that the proprietary closed source model they've been charging a premium for is now objectively inferior to a free open source model available to anyone on the planet?
They panic, and then they are forced to innovate faster.
Right.
That is the beauty of a shifting benchmark. The evolutionary pressure is immense. Competitors can no longer coast on incremental safe updates. You cannot charge a premium for what DeepSeek is giving away for free unless your proprietary offering is exponentially better.
Makes sense.
This release effectively forces the hand of every AI developer globally. They must pour more resources into research, push harder on their own context window limitations, and aggressively pursue their own novel designs just to justify their existence in the market.
It's a rising tide that lifts all boats, but it's a tide moving at a blinding speed. And the ultimate winner here isn't necessarily one specific company, it's the user, it's the researcher, it's the developer who gets to ride the wave of this massive competitive pressure.
The tools available to humanity as a whole get sharper, faster, and more accessible.
So what does this all mean when we pull back and look at the whole board? Based on the insights from MIT Technology Review and this April 2026 digest, we aren't just looking at an interesting week in tech news, we are looking at a historic inflection point.
Yeah, absolutely.
First, we have a technical triumph, the shattering of the goldfish memory problem. Through efficient, novel design, we finally have AI that can synthesize massive, complex volumes of text simultaneously without melting down the servers.
Second, we have a strategic disruption, the open sourcing of a flagship model. Tearing down the walled gardens, removing the gatekeepers, and democratizing frontier capabilities so that anyone, anywhere can innovate without asking for permission or paying a massive toll.
And third, we have a tectonic shift in the global landscape. A new benchmark has been set, proving that innovation is completely decentralized and forcing the entire global AI industry to run faster and push harder.
It is exactly the kind of catalyst that defines an era. But before we close out this deep dive, there's one final thread I really want to pull on. Something that builds directly on the facts we've just explored about collective cross-border improvements.
Okay, what is it?
Well, we discussed how a single corporate entity has finite resources, but an open-source community is infinite.
Right. The crowdsourced evolution of the tool.
Yes. So if a flagship model is released into the wild and is constantly being tweaked, patched, fine-tuned, and evolved by millions of brilliant minds across completely different cultures and disciplines, it raises a rather profound question.
I'm listening.
Fast forward a few years. When this model reaches its absolute peak, will that powerful intelligence truly belong to the company that initially laid the foundation, or will it belong to the collective human community that ultimately taught it how to think?
Oh, wow. Wait, really? Who truly owns the mind once the world shapes it? That is a brilliant thought to leave on. It completely redefines what ownership even means in the age of open source. That is absolutely something for you to mull over as you watch these tools roll out into your own workflows.
It's a fascinating paradigm shift.
It really is. Well, we want to thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the DeepSeek V4 release. We hope this helps clear away the noise of the tech cycle and give you a concrete understanding of why this specific leap in memory and accessibility changes the game for all of us. Keep diving into the facts, keep searching for those aha moments, and remember, the next time you are faced with an impossible mountain of data, the tools to conquer it are no longer locked in a vault. They are out in the open, waiting for you to use them. We'll see you next time.